So just what is the very best way of selling your Rolex or any luxury watch in the current watch market as we approach the end of 2023? And with an ever-changing and somewhat unpredictable marketplace, there appears to be a lot of confusion and indeed misleading information as to how you guys can safely achieve the best possible price for your watch. Stick around and stay tuned, because after this message from one of my trusted dealers, I'm going to give you the very best watch selling advice that you ever heard. And more importantly, I'm going to tell you why. So welcome back, watch people. So selling your Rolex watch, or indeed any luxury watch, let's start right at the very beginning. And firstly, let's start with a bit of honesty and a bit of transparency. And that's your honesty and transparency, by the way, and not mine. Because the unquestionable truth is that the number one thing on your mind when you decide to sell your Rolex is this: how much can I get for it? How can I get the very best price for my watch? Now look, these are perfectly understandable, fair and predictable questions to ask yourself. After all, look, we all want the best possible price we can get when we're selling anything, right? However, I would strongly urge you to add just one word to that first question, and that word is safely. How can I achieve the best possible price for my watch safely? Because unfortunately, those two requirements don't always go hand in hand. I wish they did. And today, we're going to explore and discuss the main options open to luxury watch sellers, and we're going to compare them with their risk versus reward factors, leaving you guys at the end, hopefully, in absolutely no doubt which is the right and wrong course of action for you. And hopefully, I'll help you come to the right decision. So firstly, look, here's option one. Without a doubt, the very best way to achieve the highest possible price for your watch is to find yourself a private buyer who doesn't really know what they're doing, doesn't really know what they're looking at, and who is prepared to pay you as a private seller the full market value for your watch. And let's be honest here, you're looking for a mug punter who hasn't done any homework, who has more money than sense, and who's prepared to pay you the same price as he would have to pay from a professional retailer who'd be offering guarantees and warranties. Now look, guys, if you can find that victim, then it's happy days for you. Or is it? In truth, these days there are very few uneducated mug punters around. And I've lost count, unfortunately, of the amount of times that I've seen private sellers come a cropper after thinking they've hit the jackpot, when actually all they've managed to do is hook themselves a scammer. Look guys, when private buyers approach private sellers and they appear to be willing to pay you a price that's, let's be honest, too good to be true, then I'm here to tell you, sadly, it probably is. And I could give you 101 examples of how trying to be a watch dealer from your own front room or from behind your computer screen can go very badly wrong indeed. And you only have to take a look at places like Facebook and eBay to see how many people are still out there, still prepared to take these risks, and all because of greed and insisting on wanting the full market price for their watch without having the market experience to do it safely. These people want to be businessmen without owning a business, and the facts tell us that this often leads to disaster. So guys, look, for me, the message today is the same as it was the very first time I ever made a YouTube video. Selling luxury watches privately unquestionably rates as the most dangerous way of selling it. Unless it's to someone that you know very well, like a very close friend or a family member. That can be different. Oh, but there's a caveat to that as well. It has its own potential pitfalls. What happens when the watch you sold to your mate, telling him that it works perfectly, needs £1,000 repair 6 months down the line? That friendship is going to be tested to the max. as you both debate as to who's responsible for the repair and indeed the bill. And I've seen this happen many times before, and I've seen friendships come to an end over just that. So look, when it comes to selling watches privately, the bottom line is very clear and it's very simple. It can potentially offer you the very best price in return for your luxury watch, but with the caveat and the very strong warning that it is, without a question, still the most dangerous way of doing it. And instead of making an extra £500, you could end up losing everything. So let's get on to option 2, which is very popular: part exchange or trading, a solid and proven very safe method of successfully moving on a watch that you've decided to move on or have simply fallen out of love with. And most watch dealers and retailers will welcome trade-ins, but remember, they are almost always and almost certainly going to have to spend money on your watch to get it what they would class as retail ready. And that doesn't mean wiping it over with a polishing cloth. It may well include anything from just a minor tweak and some minor refinishing to a major service or both. And then, of course, shock horror, they're going to need to make a profit when they eventually sell it. And that could take some time. So if you're part exchanging a watch or trading it in, don't expect a top price for your watch in return for such a simple and safe way of getting out of it in the first place. There's a penalty and a price to pay for making your life that easy. And as a seller, you're going to have to either live with that and accept it or choose a more dangerous route to follow. You already know what my advice would be. Now we move on to option 3, which of course is a straightforward, on the spot, outright cash sale to a retailer or a dealer. And this is, without any question of doubt, the safest, the easiest, the most simplistic and your quickest way out of any watch. You just can't beat walking into a watch dealer with a watch that you don't want and walking out in under 10 minutes with the cash on your hip. The job is done. However, as before, if you want all of those benefits, there's going to be a price to pay. And it's important here that everyone understands and remembers that watch dealers are not watch collectors. They might be watch enthusiasts, but they're businessmen. They don't get out of bed every day and risk their lives in a very dangerous industry without the appropriate rewards. And that means, as a seller, you're going to have to accept that he's only going to pay the price that's right for him and his business on that particular day. And that will depend on rarity, condition, and indeed the desirability of your watch. It might also depend on his particular client base. Is it the right watch for them? How long will it take him to sell it? And how many of that watch does he already have in stock? And these are all things that sellers rarely, if ever, consider, thinking that all watch dealers operate exactly the same way and the same kind of business, when very clearly they do not. Now, there are reasons why some watch dealers will pay a good price for your watch, whilst at the same time someone else might not want it at all. Some will offer you a lowball price and some will simply say politely, look, on this occasion, thanks, but it's not for me. So never be offended if a dealer gives you any of those answers. It's nothing personal, it's just what's right for his business at that particular moment in time. So selling directly to a dealer for an instant on-the-spot cash payment with no comebacks down the line is, for me, still the safest, the very best and the quickest way of selling your watch, with the caveat that it's never going to offer you the best price. And lastly, of course, we have option 4. Oh yes, watch consignment, the elephant in the watch room that has been understandably dragged through the mud in recent months and used as a scapegoat to unfairly tar an entire process that has in the past worked very well and highly successfully for a lot of people, and in many instances continues to do so. And as I said in a recent video, there can be no doubt that consignment can, under the wrong circumstances and in the wrong hands, turn out to be a disaster. But the facts and stats tell us that selling your watch privately is far more dangerous than consigning a watch to any trusted dealer. The truth is, the risks are simply incomparable. You know, frankly, I cannot believe the amount of watch YouTubers and so-called influencers out there warning you right now against consignment, but without telling you the whole story or without considering the risk percentages or indeed your choices. Even worse, they do this whilst they completely ignore the far more common and much higher risk of selling a watch yourself to someone that you don't know without any experience and with no experience of how to do it. Look, I want to be very, very clear on this. Selling your watch on consignment with a solid, proven and trusted dealer that checks out 100% remains one of the very best and safest ways for watch sellers to achieve as close as possible to full market value, and that's a fact. Now look, of course, no one is saying there are no risks. There are always risks whatever you do in life, but if you mitigate them properly, by doing your homework properly, those risks are minuscule by comparison to taking on the task of selling watches privately yourself. Look guys, the bottom line is this, think of it this way. If you're brave or indeed stupid enough to try and take on the task of selling your luxury watches privately to unknown individuals through social media or in person without any security or knowledge of how scams work, then the prospect of you leaving your watch with a trusted professional watch dealer on consignment shouldn't be fazing you one little bit, because the risks are incomparable. Now look, personally these days, I'm going to be honest, I only sell my watches through consignment. I don't need to sell in a rush. I understand that if I want a quick outright sale, there's going to be a financial penalty that I don't want to pay. And I certainly don't want strangers around my house knowing where I live and knowing that I've got expensive watches around. So you've got to think what options you have open here. Now look, lastly, I'm not trying to convince anyone that my advice is right or wrong. It really won't change my life one little bit. And I'm not trying to convince anyone how they should or shouldn't choose to sell their watch. I'm simply giving you the facts as they really are, based on my experience over 40 years. Now it's time for you to decide for yourselves. And there's one little final point to that. We are all responsible for our own actions, decisions and choices. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong. We're all only human, right? But when things do go wrong in the watch world, why is it that everyone wants to point a finger at anyone and everyone else before they think about looking at the man in the mirror? As always, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit that upvote button. And of course, subscribe to my channel. We'll see you again soon.
Heat, oxygen, and fuel. The three elements needed to ignite a fire, and the inspiration behind our most prestigious watch yet, the Triumph Collection. A Swiss-made chronograph series that embodies the fearless legacy of firefighters, including that of William Wood, our founder's late grandfather. With dials inspired by a fire engine cockpit, our signature one-of-a-kind case back inspired by a fire alarm, a push-button stopwatch, a crown forged from a 1920s British brass firefighter helmet, straps made from upcycled fire hoses, and the final spark is our iconic presentation box with an emergency pull cord to access our exclusive cufflinks. William Wood Watches, firefighting history beating through every component.